Nice. Welcome to everyone that just joined. I think we'll probably wait a couple minutes, but it's always fun to hear where people are dialing in from, so feel free to post that in the chat. Hey, Audrey.
Hello, hello.
For everyone that's participating, click the apps button, the little dot, and there's a little bell there that you can click that will turn off that little boop sound if you haven't yet.
We have someone from San Diego to Panama.
Ooh, Venezuela.
Wow.
Cool.
Welcome.
Austria, amazing.
All places that I would love to go one day, but
Yeah,
not right now.
I don't have the money to go right now.
Hey, Dragon, nice to see you.
Awesome. Well, I think let's let other people filter in, but we can go ahead and get started.
Awesome.
So welcome to Notion's hot seat session that we do with Marie Poulin. Yeah, for those of you that are kind of new to this session, the goal really is to walk through a real workflow with a real founder, in this case, Vivian. We really try to build for her use case, all those nuanced questions, the things that you're struggling with while trying to use Notion. We're going to try to go through live and almost like, in this case, build from scratch. Marie and Ben are probably some of the most knowledgeable Notion users we have. And who am I? I'm Awais. I work on SMBs and startups at Notion. And I've used Notion since 2017 as a founder, as an early employee, and in multiple use cases. So to give you some context on to Vivian, who is she? She's a founder. And she previously worked at FJ Labs, which is a venture studio and an incubator, as an entrepreneur in residence. And she's going to be talking about her own company and how she manages personal tasks and also works while she's having conversations, using a CRM to manage those conversations. So we're kind of going to do a before and after, walk you through what she sees today, what she's built, and then Marie's going to kind of build from scratch, hopefully. Yeah, I'll try to answer any questions in the chat. But yeah, let's jump into it. I'm going to pass it over to Vivian. Maybe Vivian, introduce yourself, a little bit about your company, and then you can share your screen, show us what your workspace looks like.
Sure. So I'm Vivian. Great to be on this call. I've been a Notion user, I think, since 2017, 2018. Definitely a super fan, use it basically for everything. Unfortunately, though, I'm very much a non-linear thinker. So my biggest challenge when I started using Notion was like, okay, this is awesome, but like, how do I set this up? So I often would just ask friends, like, send me your Notion, and then I'd cobble it together. And then eventually I found the templates, right, and then cobbled other people's together. But as Awais said, I'm starting my own consumer-facing company. I'm essentially day zero. So what I'm prioritizing and thinking about is things such as hiring a founding team, fundraising a pre-seed round. And even though I use Notion for many, many things, the main thing I use it for right now on a daily basis is kind of like as my operating system, right? So every morning when I get up and I sit down at my computer for work, I essentially go to Notion and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? The main task that I would love help with and that I struggle with, and I'll show you guys in a second what it looks like, is one, keeping track of my personal to-dos. So, okay, these are the things I need to do in my personal life today, and then this week. What are my company to-dos? So what do I really need to get done today? And what do I need to get done this week? And then third, kind of like what Awais mentioned, what is my CRM of tracking all the conversations I'm having, whether it's interviewing people that I want to hire or talking to people that could be potential investors, tracking this in sort of like a professional CRM that I have living here on this page. So should I just share my page and get into it? Let me see. Screen. Sure. Okay, so a few of these things have been obviously blocked out just for privacy, but this is essentially what I use every day. As you can see, it's pretty disorganized. I'll have my today, these are the things that I need to do during the day. This is what I need to do at night. Break it down by other things that I need to get done for my medical health, for work, Otis, which is my company, hiring, team, operations, personal, I need to switch my Con Ed bill, for example, fundraising, I need to come up with a list to reconnect with. And as you can tell, some of these things I've tried to makeshift create like a system to highlight like, okay, these are medical, but the highlighted in yellow is things that I should really get done this week. Perhaps they should go live in this tomorrow page, but they don't. So what's the best way to really organize this and make it like an actionable like hub of what I go to every day?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anything else to add there in terms of like your workflow in a day? So you kind of come here. What do you do with things that once they're crossed off your list here?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I actually just think about like, okay, today, what are the things that I need to have in my like checklist? So this is in the morning, I would log in and I'd say, okay, today I need to create a landing page. Today I need to reply to JR. So first I just organize what are all the things I need to do today. And then I'll start working through and say, what are the things I for sure need to get done this week? And then I'll just start going one by one. There's no really rhyme or reason to how it's organized right now. But the first thing I do is kind of just like housekeeping, organizing every day, and then going through the lists.
And do you ever do any sort of advanced planning? Like, do you do sort of an end of week? You're like, here's all the things that are coming up in the next week, or is it kind of morning of you're doing your plan for the day and the week?
So that's a good question. I usually every Monday I'll do this is what I need to get done for the week. But then sometimes, as we all know, like there will be things that will pop up that it's like, okay, this is something else I didn't predict I need to do this week, but I can't do it today. So that gets thrown into like the week bucket, right?
Mm-hmm. And then you've got a couple personal tasks over there, but then you also sort of have, medical is still pretty personal stuff too, right? So there's sort of like some personal stuff that kind of are maybe in a couple different places here.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's some amount of cleanup that you have to do every morning too, I'm assuming, in that you've checked things off and you've got to now delete those things from your dashboard. So things aren't automatically updated to give you the current context.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say too is there's some things that obviously it's like my target goal of what I would like to get done today. But if I only do these tasks, what are the things that I would need to get done? And that's what I highlight in bold. Not the best system, of course, but the things that are bold are if I get to the end of the day and I haven't done these things, I have to do them no matter what, versus the other ones will just get moved to like next day, right?
Perfect. Yeah, I know the other thing you mentioned was a CRM, right? So bringing in the people that you want to be able to keep track of every day, that you've got an easy way to kind of track, like who have I contacted, who's next, and kind of having some visibility into that too.
Yeah, and so that's super important. Oftentimes I'll have many calls during the day back to back. And so what will be sometimes a bit of a challenge because I have a good CRM system right now. I won't show you guys because then it'll disclose a bunch of people's names, but it's pretty good, but it could be a lot better. And one of the examples is because it's a little hard to manage as it is right now, when I get to like, let's say, okay, it's 10 a.m. and I have a call with, a coworker or waste, hypothetically, instead of going into my CRM and saying, okay, these are my notes, this is an easy way to input it, takes less than a minute, because it's kind of cumbersome, I tend to just create like a page and I'm like, okay, I have 1 minute to hop on this call. Let me just throw this somewhere, take the notes here, and then let me later figure out how to organize this and put this notes page in my CRM, which, as you can imagine, then just leads to this backlog of, a bunch of people's names and a bunch of notes that then I later have to organize, and that becomes a to-do in and of itself. So if I just had a very easy way of like, okay, in less than a minute, I can create a new page, hop on a call with someone, that would make it a lot more seamless, and it would take away from, the time block I often get when I'm between calls and I'm like, I have to create a new page for this person.
Awesome. Are there any other examples of things where you're like, I need to do something quickly? I think that's a really good one. It's like, I've got a meeting, and just having a sort of meeting template. Are there other examples of things that you're like, there's some friction there that we could?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The other thing that will often happen is I'll have, let's say if it's during a call with someone or during one of my tasks, I'll have a lot of thoughts and a lot of like ideas, but I have nowhere to just write down these like free form and free flowing ideas in an organized way. I don't think it warrants necessarily having like a whole database necessarily, but I often will just create like, start writing my notes right down here and then have to, you know, figure out where to put them. If there could just be like one consolidated place of like Vivian's thoughts or whatever it is, so that it doesn't just like live in space almost.
I do have a notes and ideas database, and every day on my dashboard, I'm just adding stuff there throughout the day. So I don't think it's overkill to have that, but I do think at least setting yourself up a page, even in your sidebar, or something that you could go to quickly just to have a place to dump ideas, wouldn't be a bad idea.
Exactly. Yeah. And I tend to just dump them anywhere and then they get lost in Notion. And then the last thing I'll mention too is something we talked about before this call, but I do tend to just have daily things I do. So every day I meditate, for example, or every day I take a walk. So things that just for my own sanity, I'm like, I need to make sure to do these 4 or 5 things. I don't currently track that in Notion. It just lives in my mind. But if there was a way to have, we talked about this before, if there was a way to have like daily things that just these 4 things you do every single day, that would also be really helpful.
Amazing. That's perfect. Do you want to give me a quick couple examples of things that you do every day that we can add? Because we're going to make this for you.
I think a good one is every day I try to work out. Every day I try to meditate and take a walk outside, for example. I would love to at some point in the future get into journaling, but I think we're still, that's a hope and a goal.
I mean, I honestly use my journal mostly like a daily log. It's like, did I do my walk? Did I do this? How did I feel today? So it's a very stripped down version of journaling, but I think we could absolutely put a daily log together there with just with some simple check boxes that you can say, like, did I do the things that I'm supposed to do every day? Yes, no, great. And then they're cleared out every day automatically because we're filtering it by date. So lots of stuff we can do there. Amazing. Should we jump in and I can do a screen share and we can start building, and I'll kind of have you guide me through some of the pieces of the build, and I'll kind of, give my 2 cents on here's how I would approach it, but also trying to strip it down a little bit again, because I don't want to throw you totally in the deep end, but we'll kind of inch you forward. Okay, perfect. So
should I stop sharing?
I think it's fine. I've taken over the screen share here momentarily. So I'm in the same page that Vivian was just showing here. And I just took a couple notes at the top here. So one of the things you mentioned was like that quick, easy way of making meetings. And so I actually think one of the first things we should do is create an actions database for you to do your task management. I think this is going to make your life a lot easier. And then we'll make a couple templates for you as well. Ben, you might have some strong opinions on maybe best ways to do meeting notes there, but we can talk about that. A meeting template will bring your CRM right into this page as well. I know you already have a people database. I'll probably just bring in a quick one for you just to show you kind of how I think it could work, but then I'll have you replace it with yours after we're done the session, and we can include some instructions for that. And then I think organizing your tasks by today, tomorrow, next week, probably in a Kanban board style would make a lot of sense for you. If we have time, we can get into the ideas database, and a daily log I think would be really helpful for you as well. So first thing I'm going to do, we're going to treat this like a dashboard. So there's going to be a fair bit of information in here. So I think one of the first things I'm going to do is make this full width. And this is going to start to give us a little bit more space to work with. So how do you feel about including a daily log in this page? Something where you can track your meditation, your...
Yeah, I think that would be great.
So, and we'll just call it a daily log. I'm going to say, let's do a board view here. Inline, and let's call this, you can rename this later, and let's delete some of these default properties here. Delete. The most important one we need is a date. Okay, and just sample here, daily log. Okay, so we need a date, and some of the things that you mentioned were daily walk. We're going to turn those into check boxes. So these are going to be things you can check off every day. Take your vitamins, things like that. So I'll just add a couple things here. Check box. Was there another one that you had there? Take a workout, move your body. Great. So date and some check boxes, super simple, right? I'm just going to create a really simple version of this. Now this is not too sexy to take up all of this space here. So I'm actually going to start making some columns for you to make this a little bit easier for you to manage. You can just drag a block beside another block to make a column. And what I'm going to do is add a filter here called today, because you just want to see today. I'm going to turn this into a board view. I promise this will make sense when you're like, what is she doing right now? I have no idea. I'm going to filter this so that you only ever see one entry every single day. And once we set this up, you won't have to touch this. You won't have to do anything. This will be updated automatically. So there's nothing here. So let's add today's date, December 8th, or 8th, sorry. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Accidentally added a property here. Don't want to do that. I'm adding a new entry here, December 8th. Okay, great. I'm going to drag this into that first column that I made and hide it. Okay. I'm going to turn on all of these checkbox properties and hide the date. So now this becomes something where every time you make a new entry, you're going to see just the things that you need to do today, and you check them off. The next day they're gone, right? You're just going to see the next day's entries. So that can just be an automatic daily log that's there for you and just updates automatically. But
And
Maria,
I
Oh,
assume
sorry.
that they all like go live in the database even if they're not showing up, right? So like
exactly.
not something I would need for my daily log, but if for some reason I was like, oh, did I do my daily walk on Tuesday? I could technically open the filters, right?
What you can do is open this as a page. So I'm going to actually make a calendar view for you as well, so you can actually see this over time, right? And then you'll see all the entries here, and then we can actually turn on the property. So I want to see everything except for the date. Great. So now you can start to see, was this checked off? Was this checked off?
Okay,
You'll be able to see that at the calendar level, and then we'll just jump back into the daily log. And we want to make sure that by default, we're just showing the today view. And I'm just going to group this by date, relative, and I only want to see today's date. And again, there, you won't see anything else. So basically we're just seeing today is December 8th. Those are the things I need to do today. And that's just your sort of tracker log. Feel free to add any other things in there that you're like, oh, I also want to track outreach or other things that I did, with clients. Like, did I do my follow-ups, for my CRM, that kind of thing. So anything that you want to track in there, you can do that. Over time, if you decide you want to add more information, like how did I feel today, you can add any of those properties there. But at least that gives you a little something for the things that you need to do every single day.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So we did our daily log here. And I know I went through fast on this because I know like we have a lot to build today, but if anyone needs me to kind of slow down and be like, okay, what the heck is happening? Just let me know.
One little hot tip for our audience too is when you're using a date-based system like this, to use a consistent naming pattern for your dates. So, for example, I use journal : and then the name of the date, and I use a program called Alfred on Mac. Text Expander also does this, but you can basically type a hotkey and it'll automatically insert the date for you. So that makes it a lot faster. The reason to do this is that when you search, you might be looking for journal, and then you start typing the date for a specific day, something like that. You're gonna make sure that you're scoping your search to only journal entries at that point.
So in terms of balancing your personal stuff from your business stuff, I mean, this is still just a space that just you alone are doing, but it sounds like you kind of separate out your business tasks from your personal contextually. So you're like, this morning I've got to get my business tasks done first. Do you kind of think of it that way, or how do you kind of structure your day, or how do you think about how you go through your tasks in the day?
Yeah, so I actually tend to try to, and this is outside of Notion, but try to block out, like I start the day and I'm like, okay, these are the tasks that I need to do work-wise. And then in my calendar, I'll block out like different hours for each one, right? So if it's like a meaty task, like 1 hour for creating a landing page, for example, and then 1 hour for whatever. And then just whenever I have free time, that's when I'll look at like, okay, what are the personal tasks that I need to do? And so that's why I kind of have them broken out separately so that I can, say, okay, when I'm done with these work tasks, what do I need to get done on the personal front that I can supplement?
Okay, so one of the things I want to show you how to do here, I would probably, if you're okay, I know we made this test space, so I'm assuming we can kind of muck around in
Oh
this
yeah, you
data
can move
just to kind of
anything.
show
Yeah.
you. So I would take these to-dos and I would actually drag them into your database,
Mhm.
and I would give these a property, or I'm calling it area. So like, what area of your life is it? We'll call this medical. One of the reasons I think it's going to start to make sense for you to work inside of a database is that filtering. So you can say, I just want to see my work tasks today. I don't want to see my
Mhm.
personal stuff, right? Because it can be really overwhelming to see everything that's on your list to do. So if you scroll down your page, you're like, there's just a lot happening, right?
Yeah.
When you've already time blocked, okay, I can do my personal tasks right now. So I want to give you that flexibility to just show what you need to see when you need to see it, but still give you the flexibility to say, okay, I want to zoom out a little bit and look at what have I got on for the full week too.
Yeah.
So you've got that flexibility. So we'll give you a couple different options here.
And it's funny when I think about why I broke it down to my personal tasks to just general, personal, and medical. I think I just, as most people, working people tend to leave their medical to-dos kind of like to the wayside.
Yeah.
So you get to the year end and you're like, oh, I haven't done all these medical upkeep things I should be doing for my life. And so for me, that was, I think, subconsciously a way of prioritizing, like, okay, all these things in this medical bucket, you need to focus on and prioritize, because otherwise it'll just get bucketed in with any other personal task and just never get done because it falls to the bottom.
Absolutely.
So it kind of was like a subconscious prioritization method.
Yeah.
But I think I don't even have any other categories. It's like personal or medical.
Interesting. Okay. But this is good. Like, I actually have a project called Life Admin, and I have a relation between that and my tasks. And so I know my setup's way more advanced, but it's interesting that that's what you're trying to do, but you've just found like a really simple way of doing that makes sense for you. But I think we can streamline parts of this to make it even easier. So,
Marie, one thing you should try real quick, just to highlight a new Notion feature that just shipped today, I think. If you drag that done column a little bit further, you'll note that you can now compress checkboxes down to just a checkbox.
I had
Pretty
no
fancy.
idea. Oh, that feels so good. Thanks, Notion. Yes. Look at that. I was like subconsciously restraining myself. That's amazing. I see people celebrating.
So friendly. That was not planned.
Oh, wow. Okay, I love it. So sexy. Okay, amazing. And yeah, so this is a great way, again, to time block your tasks, right? So you can see, just show me the medical stuff. Okay, just show me work stuff. Just show me personal stuff. So let's filter these out. And we're just going to say, just show me. I called it business, but you can call it work or whatever. So let's drag a couple stuff in here. Reply Discord, is that a one-time task, or is that something that you generally?
That's a one-time task.
Okay.
I need to reply to someone on Discord.
Awesome. And see, when I drag that in, it automatically inherited the area because there's a filter here. So anything that I drag into there is going to automatically inherit those properties. Amazing. And so I can hide that because we know that we're in the work area right now. Obviously, over time, one thing you're going to want to do is start adding dates for stuff that does have a best before date, or does have a date property that it's due. It sounds like in your case, a lot of your tasks aren't super date driven. Like, there's some flexibility on when they're done, but then there's going to be some where you're like, oh, that actually does have to be done by a certain date. So I would, if you're following the getting things done David Allen method, he does say, don't give something a date unless it really does have a due date. And so it sounds like that's kind of how you're operating. So one thing you can do here is say, only show me anything that has a date or doesn't have a date, or date is on or before today, or is empty. So that might be something that we could do today. So work could include everything you've got, but we could also create a view that's like just today's tasks.
Yeah.
So you have some flexibility there. So it seems like in your case, a board view could be helpful to do some kind of today, tomorrow, this week, or later kind of thing. Okay.
Might be worth having a general today table as well that's filtered by today. That way, when she's doing that processing in the morning, she can really quickly just say this, that, and the other, and then categorize them, and then switch into the context that she's working on at the given time.
Yeah, so I think almost like today is the default view. And so anything that you add there today is going to show up here. So let's actually, let's add a property for your sort of, you can call it I might even say day. We can rename this depending on kind of what works for you, but let's say today, tomorrow, and I think you had this week.
Hmm.
And there could be even someday maybe.
Hmm.
Like it's not super urgent, but it's kind of on your list.
Yeah.
Someday maybe. And I think that's going to be a helpful view for you. So on the today view, let's filter that to only things that are day is today. Great. So because nothing has days today, there's nothing going to show here. But I do see you've got some things here today. So these are all things that need to get done today.
Hmm.
So let's drag all of those up here. Great. You're going to see that's got the today property. So I'm going to hide that. And you can decide if you want to add these to your different area, medical, personal, whatever. But generally speaking, this today view will show you everything that you've got to do today.
Hmm.
You can also hide any of these properties. Like if you just want to see just the name of it and the checkbox, we can hide any of those. How about this? Is this all here for today as well? These here?
Yes. Hmm.
Great. And you could also say today completed if you wanted to be like, okay, what did I actually get done today? You can create a view for that. So let's go through some of these different views here.
Should you filter the today by date as well so that it automatically assigns that date?
Well, so that depends if she's not super date driven, but what I might recommend doing is say turn this into a group and say or date is I might even say is on or before today, and that way, like if something was overdue, it was meant to be done yesterday. So this gives you some flexibility here. It kind of depends if you're not someone that kind of needs to punch a date specifically on something.
And then you could leverage that and use a formula to create a column that says something is overdue or not.
Yep, we can create a little like fun message for yourself, like, hey, urgent, help, deal with me. So it really depends if you want that date property to kind of show up there. It would show you on a calendar view then. You're like, okay, what did I get done over the course of the month? And it can be a little bit easier in terms of your tracking. But I do recognize not everybody is as date driven with their task management. So it's an option there for you. If you wanted to make sure anytime you add a new task here, it does get date stamped, I would change that to and then those two conditions must be true every time you add something there. It's going to be given a date property and it's going to say days today.
Kind of a weird question, but is there a way to create like I don't know if it's like color coding or some type of system for tasks that are for today, but to like rank them by importance? So like, this is where I tend to, if you see like on the left, there's like some tasks that are bold versus some that are not bold.
Yeah.
Those are, I'm like, okay, these are like, I have to do these ASAP. These are super important today versus, maybe this could be tonight or maybe it could be tomorrow, but kind of like in my head, I always keep like a hierarchy of like the tasks because sometimes you don't get to everything. Like what needs to be done first, second, and third, kind of.
Absolutely. I would definitely give this a priority of sorts. Oh, hang on a second here. I like to use emojis, but I would just, let's say like high priority or like even like must do or something like that. Let's just do 2 for now, just to kind of show you what that looks like. And
I think 2 is good.
One of the reasons I love doing this too. So let's give one of these a hypothetical. Sometimes if you add a property, you'll need to revisit your property and make sure that you've got like priority turned on. Okay, great. So what are some of the ones that were high priority? I could just add a couple.
So anything that's like bolded would be high priority. It seems like most of these are bolded, but
I moved them so I think you won't see bolding in the.
Okay, so like let's say create job Notion. That one was checked, but let's say that's high priority.
High priority, great. And obviously we're just dealing with sort of test data right now, so you kind of just give you a couple there. So one of the new powerful features, new-ish, that Notion added is the ability to group things. So for your today view, I would probably set up grouping by priority if that's kind of the way that you think about your tasks. So you'll see here it's grouped, and I can see these don't have any priority, these are high priority, these are low, and I can also kind of hide this too. right? And tuck those away. I'm like, okay, great. I just know I need to get these done. Once these are done, then I can open this up and I can see
Yeah.
the full view. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hide that. Great. So that's a fun one, I think, for your today page should probably. And again, if you've got anything here that you've already got, okay, these are all tomorrow, I would drag those up, into high, low, wherever they belong. So we can start to clean this up a little bit. Okay, cool.
So this is kind of a basic question, but when you drag them, where do you drop them?
So let's say these two here need to get added. So when you hover over a database, you'll notice, so if I hover over here and the full thing goes blue, that means it's going to be adding inside that page, which I don't want it to do.
Yeah.
You got to look for that thin blue line, and that's going to add 2 new entries into the database. And of course, you can drag them out too if you're like, oh, don't want to do that. Oh, let's drag them back. And as soon as they're done, check them off. So another thing we want to do here is we don't want to see everything necessarily, even once you've checked it off. So let's add a filter so we're only seeing stuff that is, and I think there's actually a done and a checked. So we'll have to make sure to clean that up. We'll delete that property. So done is not checked. That's what we want to see for your today view, right? Just show me what's left to do. Let's delete this bad boy. It's a repetition. Great. Actually, I think that comes, this is an interesting Notion thing. I think Notion automatically adds a checked button. So if I drag this in, I think it's automatically going to have a checked. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, great. I was wondering if dragging to-dos automatically would populate that. Okay, great. So tomorrow. Okay, so I think when you're doing your weekly planning, I would switch then from this today view and say, let's show me my week at a glance. And this is how you can start to sort your today, tomorrow, next, etc. So I'm going to change the default grouping. Notion just, picks, they tend to pick a default grouping here. I don't think we need this by area. We actually want to do this by day. Okay, so you see like these have no day assigned to them. We got today, tomorrow, this week, someday maybe. So this is where you can start to be dragging things like, okay, that's tomorrow. That's today. Yeah. Okay. And you can start to do your weekly planning a little bit this way.
Might want to make the columns a little narrower to be able to see them all at once.
This sort of thing, right? And depending on how big your page is there, you can decide how much. I might do the same thing here with your day because it's pretty thin. I don't need to see all of that. So I'm just simplifying that view a little bit. And you can hide that and kind of decide how much you want to see in one go. But I think seeing your tasks in this way could be a helpful way as you're doing your planning. So I might even call that, plan your week or something like that, and even plan your day. So anything that you add here, new task, is automatically going to inherit that tomorrow. Yeah. Right? Sort of thing. And so if you have a couple different views available to you, so like just show me medical stuff, just show me today, just show me incomplete, just show me high priority. You've got a couple different options for how you view that stuff. And we just want to make sure all of these filters have the only show me what's still left to be complete.
Got it.
Let's see later this week. So let's go and drag those up as well into the, I'll just drag them up here. And then those are later this week. So I'm going to go week at a glance, and I'm going to pull all of these over into this week. But it can be later this week, right? So there's no pressure there. I have the checkbox turned on just so that if you do want to check them off right from here, you can do that. Otherwise, again, you can always turn on the properties. Maybe you want to see the priority stuff too, low, low. And what we'll do is sort these also by high priority so that your high priority stuff will show at the top.
Oh, that makes
high and low. It's got a lot of options in terms of how you see that data, but I'm still keeping it pretty simple. Like I don't think we're going to do any relations for you. Like I think we can keep this pretty simple for the way that you've been using it. So you know what category they're in, you know when they need to happen. You can check them off the list when they're done, and that gives you some options there. We could even do a board view the way we did today, tomorrow. Also by priority in this kind of view too. So I don't want to over complexify it, but does this start to make sense as like something you could see yourself doing?
This makes a lot of sense. One question I have though is, so it makes sense for me to have it on the today view when I'm going through all the tasks, but during the day there'll often be a case where suddenly I'm like, oh, this is something I need to do tomorrow and I need to add in. What's
Yep.
like the easiest way without switching would I switch the view, or how would I add in that new task?
Yeah, so it depends. Like the week at a glance gives you the options of adding anything quickly here. You could also have a view called tomorrow, or we can even show this same actions database again lower on the page. So let's, I think this might be
from the today view. If you add the day to this, you can just click that and change from today to tomorrow. So
like
go
this
to
here.
go to properties. Yeah, I mean you could have like something where one of those other views.
Yeah, this one's
has-
by priority, but if we just had a simple today view, right? Is that where you're?
Yeah, she can click one of those items and just swap the click the drop down and change it to tomorrow.
Yeah, let's change this filter here. And maybe remove something like that. Is that what you were thinking, Ben? Or grouping it by day?
So go to the view where we're just seeing her task assigned to today. So if you now go to properties and add the day. Okay.
Just so she could switch it here. Yeah.
If she wanted to move something to tomorrow, she just go over to the day column and click today and change that to tomorrow.
So adding a new task quickly and then just say, nah, that's for tomorrow. So you can still add it in the same view.
It'll move it out of that view.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we leave that turned on for you just in case you want to switch it up. But at least you can add the priority quickly and you can change up the day pretty easily. Yeah, I think that's one of the easier ways to do it. These are tomorrow. So again, I can always drag these in here, but you're like, oh wait, I wanted those to be tomorrow. I can actually either right click and edit the property of day, turn those to tomorrow, and they're going to disappear. And then you'll want to go to your week at a glance. Okay, great. So probably at the end of the day, you could look at all of your tomorrow stuff and say, okay, yep, that needs to happen today. Okay, that needs to happen today. And you can start to move that stuff around.
And that one needs to be, I think, filtered by not done as well.
This one
so
here?
when she clicks those check boxes, that it moves those out of that view as well.
So done is incomplete. Yeah, and you can hide that if you want, but I think we'll keep it there just as you're kind of getting used to it. Like it might feel a bit clunky at first because I just want to add a quick piece of test like it, if you've been using it a certain way. But I think by default you can always just add something here. Anytime you want, it's going to be there, new thing, and then you can always open this up and add and switch up your properties, give it a priority if you want to. But at least I think having a couple pre-made views that make sense for the types of things you're going to need to see also then allows you to kind of hide things a little bit, only just show what's most important at one time.
That's good.
And then personal, same thing, you can drag those up in there.
And then I tend to have this habit where I like to, it's obviously like satisfying to check off a to-do, right?
Oh,
and then I tend to always just put them all at the bottom so I can see them stack up as I'm doing all my things. Does it make sense to create like a copy of this table below that's just like completed to show all these little checked boxes, or how would I?
Yes, I love that you asked that. Okay, so this is going to be the exact same thing that we're going to have you do for your people database. So you'll notice the actions database there. This is an original database. It's an inline database living on this page, but I want to make a view of this. I want to make an instance of it. So I'm actually going to copy the link to this database here, and let's just paste it at the bottom of the page here. And we can say complete. And I'm pasting that link and I'm saying create linked database. So it's the exact same.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Right. And everything comes in by default, but this is now where we can say, you can say completed today. Maybe that's a preferred view.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I'm just going to drag that to the top as the Notion's default view. Okay, so let's do some filters here. We only want to see the things that you marked as complete. Done is checked. And one thing we might want to do to have some accuracy on this would be to add a last edited date. So last edit, and we can hide that property so you don't actually see it visibly all the time, but it's a timestamp by Notion.
Mm-hmm.
So last edited time, I'm just going to hide that property. I'm going to say always hide. So it's there if you need it. If you're curious, you're like, when did I last actually do that thing? And I'm going to go down here, and that way we can filter this to make sure that the last edit is within the past day. Oh, is it? Can I not do the last day? Is that new? Weird. There's usually a day property. I could say, I guess, is on or before today, and is on or after tomorrow. A little goofy, but okay. Notion, we want to be able to pull in our last edits. Okay, so let's check one off our list just to new thing here. We did it, and hopefully done is checked.
It's not possible for the last edit to be after tomorrow. So remove that one.
Oh, after yesterday.
There you go.
There you go. Sorry. And we can move these properties around so you can see what, like maybe you don't need to see all of them or whatever, but at least that would kind of give you that running total of today's tasks.
That
and or if you want
serotonin hit that I need every day.
Oh yeah, if you need that higher too, you know, maybe you still want to see your tasks that were done today too. Even up here, we can create a view that's like, show me what I did today. So you have lots of options for how you do that.
No, I think the way we did it was good because it doesn't like it frees up some space at the top, but it still has it.
Yeah. And if you wanted to, like, just I'll show you a really simple thing too. Completed today. So let's say that's a link. What I'm going to do is copy, because you can copy a link to any block. And I'm going to paste this here. And so if you really just wanted to jump quickly to be like, show me my completed today, it jumps you to the bottom of the page.
Have I been effective?
So just a skill there, just to show you if you did ever want to kind of link to other parts of pages. You can even link to a blank block if you wanted to. Okay, cool. So we have a log, we have actions database. So one of the things that I like to do is I include my meetings inside of my actions. To me, a meeting is just a type of action. So you may want to have a task type that is a task or a meeting. So I'm going to add a new property that's type, and those. So something is either a task or it's a meeting or event. And then I would want to make a template for you so that every time you have a meeting, maybe it's like, who's there, agenda, whatever, you've got a couple prompts already ready to go. And so that way, like you were saying, always, we got to have a meeting. I would create a new one using that template, and it's right there ready to go for you.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
Let's add a filter here by type. Type is meeting. Right. So apparently this is a meeting that we're having today. So we'll say hot seat. Okay, that's today. Great. And I like to create some templates for that. So I would say we're going to make you a new meeting template, and let's add a little message or blurb, bubble, something like that. And then I like to give a checkbox for the tasks. And that way visually too, I can see, okay, what are all the meetings I have? What are all the tasks that I have visually? I find that super, super helpful. And so you'll see I've added an emoji, I've added a type, and I'm inside of a template inside of actions. So let me show you what it looks like. Let's say you've got a new meeting today. You just rapidly need to add something new. I'm in this meetings view. Okay, new meeting. I can just open it up, and I'm going to hit new meeting template. I'm already ready to go. I can just be typing all of my stuff right in here in this database, and gives it that little icon there. And if you want agenda notes, what did we discuss? If you have like a way that you do your meetings all the time, that you want to include that stuff in there, you can include references to, standard operating procedures or other things that live elsewhere in your space. You can kind of paste them into that template so those prompts are ready to go for you as well, if you like.
It's like if you were having a customer conversation or user interview, like you just have the script and it'll always populate again and again and again every time you talk to a user.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, we do like a weekly sync meeting, and so in there it's like, what are the team wins of the week, and what are we celebrating this week? What are the strategic issues we need to cover, and then what are our next steps? And so it's just nice to kind of have those check boxes of kind of what to do, and you can still do the same thing from here. So like, oh, I've got a high priority meeting, just add it here, new meeting, open it up, and hit new meeting. And all of your information can be here. Over time, as you get even more comfortable with Notion, you start to have relations between different databases. This is where I would say, who did I have that meeting with? I would have a link to your people database or your CRM, and that way you actually have the person's information right here. You can start pulling in roll-ups. You can start, what's the company name? What's their Zoom information? Like you can start to pull in all of that information once those are related. But for now, I want to keep this simple enough that like, it'll take you a bit of time, I think, just getting used to it, kind of, using it day to day, making sure it feels right, making sure the views feel right. And then over time, you can start to add those relations between tasks and other parts of your workspace. And that's another reason. I know earlier we had talked about you have a separate account for your business, even though it's mostly just you, and then your personal private stuff. You can have those living in the same workspace, which then allows that data to speak to one another, but still keep your stuff private. So there's a lot of different ways you could set that up.
So this is a kind of a basic question, but so all of those things, if you want to share with other people, should live in workspace and not in shared, right?
Anything that you want to share with people, should live at your so workspace here. I only have access to this one page. If you want other members of your workspace to see it, move it out of private into the workspace area. Yeah, I don't think I do have permission. So you can see, are you sure that you want to share this with all your workspace members? Okay, yes, you'll be able to see that now as well. If I decide.
Yeah. It's funny because I never really understood what the workspace was for, because when I would add people, I would just add them to access and then it would become shared, right? So I was like, what's shared versus workspace?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's a point of confusion for sure. So because this is a private page here, if I share this and add someone directly by their email address, you'll see a little shared, area in the sidebar show up. And so it starts at private and then you add people and then it starts to show up in the shared area. But workspaces, like those are the default pages that all workspace members can see automatically. But hypothetically, if anyone in your workspace can see Viv HQ, but let's say you're like, oh, well, I don't want other people to see that. You can make that private. You can also make individual pages inside scoped out. So like maybe everyone can see this page, but they can't see these 3 pages. You can actually drill down and scope out access to nested pages.
And Marie, do you think we'll have enough time just to do like a lightweight CRM use case? Because Vivian's having meetings with customers and users, and that maps really well to the meetings part of the actions database that we set up. Just like a light overview there.
Let's say, I think you called it CRM, right? But I would probably, in this same page, I would have your people right here, probably in a board view, probably by status. Let's open up one of these cards. So let's say maybe role, company, a couple, like whatever the properties are that you kind of keep track of in your CRM. And depending on your business, your relationships, right? It might be prospect or something like that, or contacted, depending on how linear your process is of working with different people. So I don't know, what are some of the statuses that you might have when you're connecting and working with people?
So, some of the statuses might be like if they're an investor versus like a hire, that could be like what type of category I would put them under. And then sometimes I might put them like a task that needs to be done, like I need to reach out versus they've replied versus scheduled versus completed.
Yep. So let's say investor is one of those categories, contacted, like invested, right? So any of those different status properties I would include here. And then I would say, let's show all of your people in this format here. So you can be like, okay, this is completed, would actually go at the end here. Or investors, obviously just making up some of these statuses here, but let's make this a little smaller too, so you can kind of see. Obviously, you'll have a lot more people in here, but you might also just want to say who's active or who have I contacted, who's been last edited within the last week, right? So who are the hot leads and that kind of thing. So you can start to add some filters to say, you know, only show me people who are status of investor, who have these circumstances kind of thing. So only want to see investors or prospective investors or something like that. So I would basically keep them at the ready. And this is where having a connection between your CRM and your tasks could be really handy.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, you can take your meeting notes in here too. And I might even say, do a timestamp. You can say at now, at.
It'd be really nice to build a template for this with a template button inside of it.
Yeah.
And that way, every time you have a meeting with somebody, you could click that template button.
So here, like, well, right, but the CRM is more adding, oh, I see what you mean. Like there'd be a template button ready to go.
So you have all your notes of all the meetings that you've had with somebody in one page. And I know a lot of people like to create a separate meetings database and relate it to the person, but I'm finding more and more that I've been building these CRMs for people that they really like to have all the notes on one page so that they can really quickly Command F and find related, like, okay, the last time we talked, it was this, and so on and so forth.
And I think one of the things you can do as you're getting used to Notion and you're not working with relations yet is use toggles for that. So if you have a meeting today, you can actually use a timestamp and say today, and then these are all your notes from today. Great, they're tucked away. And then the next time you do it, it's the same thing, the timestamp. And so you've got this log, it's all searchable, it's all there, but it doesn't kind of take up all the space all the time. So that's one way you might want to think about doing that. Right, so this is like new person. And role, I think, might be also good as a select or multi-select, depending. I think having a date created is probably like when were they added to your database and when did you last contact them, something like that.
Yeah, I've been adding last contacted and then a follow-up by so that you can add reminders to your follow-ups. And so, if you might even do that as a formula so that if you contact somebody and you want to follow up a week later, you could have a formula that adds a week to that date so that when it comes up, you can see like, okay, this week I need to follow up with these people.
I totally hear you, and I don't know that I would want to add formulas just yet for Vivian, but I totally agree with you. There's some stuff like that can make things really easy. But in the meantime, I would say having some kind of follow-up date and even turning on reminders for yourself. So you could say 1 day before, remind me, and you'll get this in your own workspace. You'll see a little reminder under OASE, and it'll show up in your updates here. There'll be a little red button. You're like, oh, what's that? Oh, right. And it'll take you right to that entry, and you'll remember, oh, right, I need to follow up with OASE today. And you can either assign that to yourself here or it's here. But at least like your tasks and your CRM are all kind of both visible to you in the same place. So because you already have a CRM elsewhere in your space, I would encourage you to use the trick that we did where you would copy the link to your database that lives elsewhere, and I would paste it here and then set up the view the way that you want it to see.
Yeah.
So you're not recreating work.
No, I think that's great.
And I think we're getting close to the end of the session. I wanted to have at least room for a couple quick questions.
Yeah.
Just for the whole group. And Marie, one of the questions that came up was around linked databases.
Yeah.
More simple question is, can a linked database exist as a standalone page, or will it always show as inline? And then there's a follow-up to that. But yeah, real quick,
can a linked database exist as its own page?
Or do you always have to put it as an inline? Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I answered this one, and I can explain my answer. So right next to the filters area and the new button, there's a little kind of turn sideways double arrow, and any database you're looking at, if it's embedded in a page, if it's linked, you can click that double arrow and it's going to show you the full standalone version of that database. And that works for any linked database. So you can create a bunch of different views in 2 different sets of linked databases, and you can click that and you can see that as a standalone page within your database. And the same thing goes with if you have a linked database on a page, you can, and you open the page in the sidebar, there's there you can see the links to those databases there, and those links will link you right into a standalone version of that page.
I'll do a super quick demo here because this is a linked database here at the bottom of the page. You can see linked databases always have that little arrow on the left here, but you'll see this double-sided arrow here means I can open this up as a page. So any changes that I make here in this view will be reflected when I jump back onto the page.
Yeah.
It'll change up this view here.
And you can see that when she went into it, the path at the top changed from VivHQ to /actions. So you can see that that's actually nested inside the VivHQ page. And then if you click open that arrow on the sidebar in Workspace, Marie, just to show the other example. So yeah, at the bottom there, you can see that same actions link. And I think if you click that one, it's going to take you full through to the same standalone page.
And changing gears slightly, I love this question, and I'd love to hear your opinion, Marie and Ben. I know, like, especially as Vivian imagined, she adds a couple people onto the team, start like commenting on different docs. A lot of comments can be scattered in different places. Is there any way to see all the comments going on in the workspace in one place, or do you have tips on being able to be on top of the comments that are coming in if Vivian's the main founder, has to respond to multiple points of feedback? Any quick tips that you might have there?
Marie, do you want to take that one?
I mean,
so this is tough, and this is something that actually we have internally at Okidoki. It's interesting because Marie works very differently than a lot of the other employees, and so the only way that we can get stuff into Marie's radar is if we give something a date, because then it shows up on her dashboard. So if I comment at Marie, she often will miss those things because it's not part of her system. So you kind of have to know a little bit with Notion, like how does your team work, and what's the best way to get those tasks into people's views? Like, do you have a process for that? Personally, I use the all updates area, which is you can see there. Any pages that you're following, like again, you can go over to the little to the icons in the top right, and you can follow a page, and that will give you all updates to it. The other thing is that if you're mentioned in a person property on any database driven pages, you'll automatically get updates to that unless you unsubscribe. So typically you're using your inbox in the all updates tab, and you can X whenever you've dealt with something, you can X out of that. So basically I kind of use the all updates inbox sort of like email, where once I process something, I exit out of that inbox. Otherwise, I can go back later and be like, okay, I still haven't processed these comments yet. But again, with a totally global Notion space with hundreds of employees, you are going to have a bad day if you try to follow all of the updates in every single Notion page. So really think about what do I need to know about? And I think for most people, especially somebody like Vivian, who's going to be a founder at the company, she's going to design a dashboard that gives her insights into what she needs to know about what's happening at the company. So she's probably going to be like in a similar way that Marie basically ignores, our operations stuff for the most part and does her own thing. But that's just the reality of how it works. Like, you have CEOs, they can't be checking in on updates and what's going on across the whole organization.
Too busy being awesome.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really a matter of how does your organization work? Where are the touch points and for your meetings and your syncs and things like that? And you really need to design systems and dashboards around those touch points instead of thinking about getting updates. So I don't know if that really answers that question, but yeah, in general, it's in that inbox.
Right. No, that's great. And a good note to end on, Ben. I think one thing I will say is we're continuing to improve the comments side of our product, so you can manage it like an inbox and it's more relevant. But I think this has been a great session, just showing, like, especially Vivian's like personal and work use case. which I think we hear a lot about at Notion. A lot of our users end up starting with personal, transitioning to the team. So hopefully it's been a good summary of running yourself and starting to run your company in Notion. We'll be sharing the recording after this. Anyone who registered will get the recording automatically. It'll also be uploaded to YouTube. And then, we might share some end of the year communications and share all the templates that we've built throughout these hot seats this year. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you guys as well. This is a great hack for me to have you guys do this.
Awesome.
Thanks,
And yeah,
thanks so much for sharing your space.
keep us posted on it, because I know it's a big change, if you're used to doing something one way, and so it might take a bit of time as you kind of figure it out. So let us know what you find works, and have some fun playing with it.
Feel
Awesome.
free
Thank you
feel
so
free to
much.
follow up with either of us. We're happy
Yeah.
to hop on and pair more in your space offline.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.